special intentions. Councilman Segura.
Thank you, Council President. Holidays are always a good time generally, but unfortunately, these last few weeks have been a rough time for city employees. Started off on December 25th with the death of Keith Chiro Sr. He is a 28-plus year employee of the city, 20-something years as code enforcement director, served in many other temporary positions, public works director, on and on. He was just an all-around go-to guy for the city administrations, and it's just very disheartening. Keith and I grew up together. To have someone just, leave so suddenly, especially on Christmas Day. I know his wife Maggie, his son Kenny that still works for the city, and his other son Keith certainly should be kept in our prayers, and I hope that everyone does so. Second loss came on New Year's Eve. Miss Glenda Folich, longtime employee of the purchasing department. She's the sister of Vincent Grafata, a longtime Kenner resident, very active in the city, and she, again, left us unexpectedly. So again, please keep her families in your prayers. Next, unfortunately, on January 6th, a 30-year employee of the Kenner Police Department, Lieutenant Keith Pepitone, again, suddenly, unexpectedly, was taken to be with our dear Lord. Keith goes back, as I said, 30 years with the Kenner Police, worked with him personally for a long time. I'm sure all the other police officers here tonight recognize the service that he did to the city, and it's just a shame, but he will be greatly missed also, so want to keep him in our prayers, and I hope we have no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Segura. Is anybody else with special intentions? Councilman Carroll?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to ask for everyone in the audience prayers for two District 1 residents that recently has gone on to with God in heaven. First being Karen Stulig Marcy, and the second, Mr. John Lightfoot Sr., longtime residents of District 1. I'd like to ask for your prayers for them and their families. Thank you.
Anybody else with special intentions? And if you will, Councilman Reyno, lead us in prayer.
Let us bow our heads and ask for God's blessings. Our Father and our God, as we stand at the beginning of this first council meeting of the new year, we confess our need of your presence and your guidance as we face the future. We each have our own hopes and expectations for the year that is ahead of us, but you alone know what it holds for us, and only you can give us the strength and the wisdom we will need to meet its challenges. So help us to humbly put our hands into your hand and to trust you and to seek your will for our lives during this coming year. In the midst of life's uncertainties in the days ahead, assure us of the certainty of your unchanging love. In the midst of life's inevitable disappointments and heartaches, help us to turn to you for the stability and comfort we will need. In the midst of life's temptations and the pull of stubborn self-will, help us to lose our way, but to have the courage to do what is right in your sight, regardless of the cost. And in the midst of our daily preoccupations and pursuits, open our eyes to the sorrows and injustices of our hurting world, and help us to respond with compassion and sacrifice to those who are friendless and in need. May our constant prayer be that of Psalm 119:33. Teach me, O Lord, to follow your decrees, then I will keep them to the end. We pray for our nation and its leaders during these difficult times, and for all those who are seeking to bring peace and justice to our dangerous and troubled world. We pray especially for your protection on all those who serve in our armed forces, and we thank you for their commitment to defend our freedom, even at the cost of their own lives. Be with their families also, and assure them of your love and concern for them. Bring our divided nation together and give us greater vision of what you would have us be. Your word, Psalm 33:12, reminds us that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. As we look back over the past year and thank you for the goodness to us, far beyond what we have deserved, may we never presume on your past goodness or forget your mercies to us, but may they instead lead us to repentance and to a new commitment to make you the foundation and center of our lives this year. And so, our Father, we thank you for the promise and hope of this new year, and we look forward to it with expectancy and faith. This we ask in the name of our Lord and Savior, who by his death and resurrection has given us hope for this world and for the world to come. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Moreno. We have somebody here from the Boy Scouts from Troop 490. I'd like you to lead us in the pledge, if you will. Come on up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B 14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is my first meeting that I'm actually presiding as the president of the council, so I have a concept that I wanted to implement tonight to start this night, and we could start afresh, especially since it's the first council meeting of the new year, and also in light that we have elections taking place in the city of Kenner. So here we go. I ask that comments at all the microphones when they're made, they may be made without political campaigning. Again, there are several races that are taking place. So I ask that these subject matters be refrained from being discussed at these meetings. No personal attacks upon council persons or citizens or our guest speakers for that matter. Refrain from making any negative statements about others, demanding apologies, cursing, yelling, applauding, cheering, those types of things. We want to keep decorum. We want to keep the subject matter moving along in a proper fashion. No disruptive behavior hindering our meetings. Please remain peaceful and keep everything orderly. Having said these things, I interject most of the time. I'm going to interject most of the time if I see something that's occurring that's out of place or it's wrong or something's being said that is violating those things. I won't be able to catch everything, so I'm asking that I encourage and I ask that my fellow council persons, when they hear something that is improper, I ask them to please immediately raise your hand and ask for a point of order. At that time, we will stop the ongoing debate and ask for the grounds of which you are relying for the point of order. Keep it short, keep it sweet, and I will rule on it and we'll take any necessary steps from that point forward. With this procedure being presented to you, I ask that someone with our legal department further discuss the inappropriateness of political comments being made at our microphones, if you will.
Yes, sir. The Code of Ordinances, Section 7-179, actually makes it a misdemeanor crime. The title of that section is Political Activities Prohibited at City Meetings, and the gist of it is that any person who displays or distributes political literature, solicits money or support for any political purposes, or makes any comments in support or opposition of the candidacy of any individual for a local parish-wide, state, or federal office at or during any duly constituted city meeting, that's a misdemeanor crime. It carries a fine not exceeding $200 and possible imprisonment not to exceed 30 days.
Thank you for that. I think that's very clear. We will not be allowing campaigning taking place at these meetings. So, and that's the premises that we're relying upon, and that's very important. So if you will, Madam Clerk, we can start the agenda.
Yes, sir. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes, the council meeting of December 21st, 2017. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. Item 2A is a resolution granting an alcoholic beverage permit to Celebracion Hispana de Kenner Incorporated on March 10, 2018 and March 11, 2018 at Kenner, Laketown, West Peninsula, being property owned by the city of Kenner in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. We have none. Item 4 is correspondence reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. At the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mayor Zahn, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Appreciate it. Just a few little things just to go over real quick since our last meeting in Christmas, right before Christmas. Our code department has been distributing flyers at the airport taxi lot announcing the implementation of our new Kenner ordinance to all the cabs and the TNCs. I'm proud to, or happy to, announce that we have about $10,000 from Uber that's already come in for their fee. The other TNC applications, such as Lyft and MetroCab, are supposed to be coming in. These are requests for the occupational license and other cabs throughout the city so they can operate here, also outside of Kenner. We plan to start, we will start the enforcement on February 1st. As we had mentioned before, we would just be doing these things just to give them a warning and let them know what's coming. But the actual law that you all passed will be enforced starting February 1st by our code enforcement department. One other thing, the Goodyear structure, which has been an eyesore to the city of Kenner, District 4, also Esplanade Mall, has been demolished. They started on that sometime last week. They did it very, very quickly. We were talking earlier, some of the council members with my administration, on how we're looking at the demolition that will be coming very soon on the old Hollywood movie theater. So this shows that there's some progress happening at the Esplanade Mall. I know it's been slow in coming, but we are getting there, and seeing the Goodyear building come down, which is something I know Maria has dealt with for numerous years and Lenny has dealt with for the last 4 years, is actually a very good thing. Like I said, that Hollywood theater, with the help of you guys, that will come down also. So I appreciate the work that all of you all do. Real quickly, we did 2 code sweeps just since the new year. On January 4th, we conducted a small code sweep at the commercial buildings located at 2600 and 2700 blocks of Lexington and Marietta. We got about 30 violations there that they're addressing. Yesterday, we did a code sweep in the 3200 to 3400 blocks of California and Arkansas, and about 50 violations were found there. Our code enforcement, sounds like a code meeting, but our code enforcement department is definitely doing the work like all the other departments. But the reason we keep talking about code is because we will do the war on blight and get rid of it. So I compliment the code department, our director, Rick Walter, and our assistant director, Molly McInnes, for the work they do, along with all those guys in the street. But as always, I appreciate y'all's support of those code suites throughout the districts and the 2 at-larges for supporting those. That's it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. That will conclude our consent agenda this evening. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFranchise, second by Councilmember Wilmot. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding resolution number B 16844, a resolution calling a public hearing on December 7, 2017, to determine whether the structures located at 3101 Jasper Street in Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember DeFranchise, to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote to open your public hearing. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to open your hearing. We're now in a public hearing, and I believe that the Code Enforcement Department has a presentation this evening.
This is a replay
Hit his microphone.
of last month. This is, the structure in question is a pile-supported slab structure located at the municipal address of 3101 Jasper Street. Property is owned by Wanda Brackens and Adam Washington Sr. Excuse me. On July 18, 2017, this property was found to be unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57, it's all of the code ordinance for the city of Kenner. On September 14, 2017, a notice was sent certified mail to the property owners, advising them of the property and building violations. City of Kenner also contracted the services of an engineer who noted in his report, now retained by the city, the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Utilities are disconnected and has been so for several years. Majority of the windows and doors are not boarded. Sections of the aluminum fascia covering is missing or falling off, thus exposing the untreated boards to the elements. Evidence of a roof leak and a portion of the roof sheathing are rotten on the west side of the structure at the overhang. Section of the exterior sheathing has become dislodged from the structure on the west side of the building. There is a major hazard at the southwestern corner of the property where an existing cracked concrete slab exists. Based on our visual observations, the structure is a serious public hazard. We recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance and have it abated by demolition or brought up to current city codes and ordinances. After receiving notice, Mr. Washington came to the office, was met by Chief Building Official James Mohammed, whom advised Mr. Washington what was needed in order to bring the structure into compliance. As of this date, no demolition permit has been applied for by Mr. Washington, or have there been any attempts to bring in the necessary documentation as required to come into compliance of building codes and ordinance.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address on this issue?
State your name and your address, sir.
Adam Washington, Senior.
Your address?
31 Jasper, yeah. Adam Washington, Senior.
Okay. It's the address at this property itself?
3101 Jasper?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's where you're residing?
No,
Okay, where are you residing, sir?
I reside in La Plaza,
And what address is that?
1011 Midwood Road.
Okay. All right, go ahead, sir. Make your statement.
Yeah, last time I came over here, they told me they were gonna give me notice to, give me the paper, what I needed and stuff like that to, get everything up to code. When I came right before the holiday, when they called me, I called up the office. When I got here, they told me it was open, and I told them I was here at 9. And when I got here, they told me they got order from the mayor to say that they just closed down. So I had to wait the following week, which was after the new year, to come and get it. Okay, so I couldn't get everything back to my contractor. So my contractor couldn't get in touch with, his people and stuff like that to find out what the cost was. So they couldn't give me no cost or nothing like that. So that's what I'm coming asking for more time once my contractor give me what I need. So I can present that, then I have everything for y'all, what y'all need.
If I could respond to some of that,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. He was given a complete list of what was required. He's actually signed for it. The meeting he attended was the December 12th council meeting in here. And he was given, I believe he was given a handwritten list that night of what was required. The fact that he came on Christmas Friday or Thursday, whatever it was, and they had shut down early, he was well aware of what was required to save this home for demolition. He's aware also that that structure is a hazard, that the back bedroom on the northwest side was added without pile support and is pulling away from the structure, as well as a wall was removed separating the living room from the kitchen without proper support, putting the entire residence in a dangerous situation. That home has been empty since 2005 Katrina. I'm just making you aware of it. It's y'all's decision.
which, let me make you aware of too. I just received this house in 2015. So what are you talking about? I don't have no idea what's going on. Yeah, I look at the part that was added on to the house. We agreed to tear that down because that's not supposed to go on there because it's a regular slab. I agree with that. You know, some jackleg, whoever they had to add on that section and stuff like that, I'm aware of all that.
You appeared before us before, sir?
Yeah, right before, what are you talking about? They didn't give me no paper. I can't pick the paper up over here what I needed.
You appeared before this council, this body, sometime recently?
Yeah, the last, right before the holiday, what are you talking
Okay,
about?
so it was the last council meeting you were here. Have you gotten anything done since that time, or is it strictly?
I just recently got the letter, what I needed. What they told me what I needed to get everything up to date.
Councilman Carroll, you wait until after?
Is there anyone else in
Anything
the
else?
public wishing to address the council tonight?
Thank you, sir.
Hearing no further public discussion, I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember DeFrances to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember DeFrances for approval tonight. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Washington, could you come back up, sir? And I have a couple of questions, and it's not going back over or to rehash some of the things we talked about before. I did have an opportunity to speak with a gentleman who represented himself as a possible contractor for you. He and I talked about a few things. A couple of things he said that as far as right now you're requesting additional time is within a week's time to be able to get the financial and to prove to Mr. Wessel that we are able to go forward with this. Is that fairly stated?
Well, financial not the problem.
Okay, but
Just let me, on him.
But I'm saying is, he's indicated to me, given a week's time, that you would have all the documentation and everything to get done, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's fair, and that's reasonable. As far as it relates to our position, we had the last meeting, there was a 2 weeks extension. Mr. Wetzel, just for clarification, given within the laws, we have a 17-day period, am I correct, before anything would actually start for the demolition. Is that correct?
I can hold it off as long as you say, sir.
So, Mr. Washington, within 17 days, we can legally hold back on the process, and I think that will give you the time that you're requesting for to be able to secure the documentation, the financial stuff, and also to have the confidence from the code that we are going in the right direction.
Yes, sir.
So would you think that would be fair that given those 17 days to give you enough time, we're going to go forward with this? We're going to vote yes to start the process. But if you intervene within those 17 days with the proper documentation, then it will cease. And then we will go forward with your suggestion on remodeling, renovating, tearing down, whatever that case may be.
Okay.
Mr. Wessel, are you comfortable with those arrangements?
Fine, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Washington.
Thank you.
So on behalf of Mr. Washington, on behalf of the co-director, I will ask for the support to be able to vote yes with the process. There is an understanding that Mr. Wessel will not start the process until 17 days, which is no exception. Everybody gets that for the law to get starting the process. So please thank you for your support.
Council members, please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Next legislation.
Item 9B is summary ordinance number 12,325, an ordinance approving the lease of an existing building and improvements located on Lot 17C, Square 40, Old Kenner subdivision, bearing the municipal address of 409A Williams Boulevard, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, for the sum of $650 per month for a 12-month term. Mr. Chairman, we've received a request this evening for a 2-meeting deferral as per Councilman Carroll.
Okay.
I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Segur for a two-meeting deferral. Council members,
Members,
please
please
vote on it. Would you like to?
Give the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. On this deferral, this building is currently used by Gendusas for, on a 3 or 4 times a week, they lease this from the Recreation Department. Am I correct? Somebody can answer that for me, please?
Hello? There you go. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes, the building next to the current Gendusa restaurant, which is also leased from the city, is being rented on a day rate from the Recreation Department using our meeting room policy. So this particular, the first one on your agenda, is a request by Mr. Gendusa to rent on a monthly basis the property that's currently being used on a day rate 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay, and this is a citywide building, correct? This is a building that's owned by the city, that's used by anybody in the city that would want to rent it on a day rate.
Yes, sir. It's available for rental by anyone who meets the criteria for renting. It's for meetings or functions. But right now, Mr. Gendusa has pretty much reserved most of the Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and some Sundays for the rest of the year.
So this is no different than the pavilion or the one of our gymnasiums that could be rented on a regular basis by anybody?
It could, yes, sir.
Okay. And the city currently takes care of all of the insurance and maintenance and everything by it being on a day rate,
And
correct?
yes, sir, and the utilities as well.
Okay. And this proposed monthly lease will then take that burden off of the city because he will be responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep and insurance and electricity and everything that goes along with that. Am I correct?
Yes, sir, you're correct. The only thing that would, at that point, we'd be responsible for would be major repairs, like the roof or or foundation or HVAC.
And can I ask one other question? What is the position on leasing this? What is the administration's position right now on leasing this on a monthly basis? Is this a good thing for the city or a bad thing, knowing that I just talked about all of those different costs to the city?
Are you taking a position?
We have a, Council Chairman, Ms. Ari, we have a,
Mayor has the floor.
thank you. We have a business owner here that continues to use it, which I think everybody up here knows Mr. Troy Gendusa, and we support that. The time, as in the agenda meeting, we talked about the times that he uses it, he actually brings in more people because he's able to book the room for so many parties. I support him getting this lease. Now, I don't want to step into Councilman Carroll's district and tell him what to do, but I was just having a short discussion with him that I think it is good that we actually continue to do that for him. We have been approached by other organizations, maybe 2, that would like to use it. That's something we could probably work out with him still with Mr. Gendusa. I have no issues with Mr. Gendusa keeping this lease. But I'm going to yield to our district councilman to actually make that final decision. It's y'all's say. The administration is to keep on helping Gendusas. As you know, every time you go there, you know, on a Friday and Saturday night, it's, you know, outside waiting. During the day, not waiting, but I mean, it's packed.
Okay. So with a 2-meeting deferral, there's really not anything that's going to happen in 2 meetings that's really going to change anything. It's not like we have people knocking the door down to try to lease this building.
I mean, you know, I don't have a crystal ball to see what's going to happen, but we do have 1 or 2 organizations that would like to grab it. Like, again, I'm going to say, this is up to this district councilman and 3 friends up here of his to make sure that this stays in his district where this business owner continues to give back to our city.
So what is the purpose of the deferral? Is he not complying with something that in the potential $650 a month lease?
I'd have to let our planning director address that part.
Mr. Hebert, could you answer that question? Is there something that planning is asking for that he's not submitted on this particular agenda item, on this particular one?
If I understand the question correct, no, there's no outstanding information or no outstanding issues.
That the city is required to have prior to executing a lease with him? He's basically,
This is just a preliminary step, Councilman, that requires that an appraisal be conducted and provides annual fair market value for the leasing of the building. That's been provided, and the applicant has accepted the estimated fair market value along with the conditions of the lease. There's no outstanding issues that I'm aware of.
okay.
Might I add that, we need this legislation to continue that lease with him, if that's the will of the district councilman or the council.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to be supporting a deferral based on the information that was just given to me. And I understand that the property is located in District 1, and I understand that the district councilman is requesting a deferral. However, this is a citywide building. This is no different than the pavilion or any other building that the city has that is really not a district building. It's kind of like, the Pontchartrain Center is in District 3, but, just because I make a request about something with the Pontchartrain Center, it is a citywide building and it's open to everybody. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank y'all.
Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd just first like to say that there have been a lot of conversations, a lot of communications from when we first started about this, myself personally, as the council person for this particular property, with the planning department, with the Mr. Ince from community development, with the different organizations. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of information, a lot of conversations that as the council person that I have been privy to, as opposed to everyone else whose district is not in. I realize it's a city building, but due respect to my fellow council person, it is a District 1 building. I have received additional information today from Mr. Gendusa that I am going to ask to not to defer for the first one. So I don't want to get anyone confused. I'm going to withdraw my deferral for the first one because I have met, a couple of days ago with the committee. There's some additional information that we talked about. I don't want to talk about some of that information right now because it's a lot of information. It's the same individual requesting 2 buildings. One sometimes cross over to the next one, and the other one, they're together, but they're separated for the legislation, and I can appreciate the fact that the confidence that have been built with the Historic Committee and other committees that for Mr. Gendusa, out of fairness, we don't want to put this in a position where it would be unfairly to him. So based on that, and based on some of the information that the council person said, we will defer. I'm gonna want to go forward with A, because that's where we are now. That's all I'm going to talk about. But just because it's a city building, it's like everything else, the Pontchartrain Center, like he said, and all kinds of things. There are certain things, even though it's a city building, that is privy to the people that live in the respective district. Things like that are located, like the levy is not our levy, but it's in District 1. It is certain things, that conversation we have as a city, but there are certain things that happen for the people that live in that area that you are not privy to, Councilman, that we are. So taking that into consideration, we have to consider that sometimes, not just the fact that it's a city building. And based on that, but I'm listening to what you're saying, and I agree, based on everything going on, I'm going to pull back on my deferral for that one. But there are times, and I hate to be territorial, but sometimes I am, and I'm not afraid to say that because it is in certain areas, the council person, and there's an unwritten rule that the lead for different things should be taken by the person from that district. We talk about it like we always do, but there are certain things that are privy to me in District 1. that, no disrespect, that no one up here has the privy information to that. You just don't, because I've been living there my whole life. You can't tell me what's better for the people in District 1 just because it's a city building. And I'm not talking about just that. It's just that other things that take place. So I agree with you. I'm going to pull back on the deferral for this one. I want to go forward, so I would ask for your support to vote yes for A. So I
Okay.
hope I didn't get anybody confused with that.
Okay, so I have a
B.
removal of a
9B,
motion.
9B, excuse me, 9B.
9A, okay, 9A, I have a removal of your motion to two-meeting deferral for 9B. Would you
Yes.
remove your second for 9B to two-meeting deferral? So now we'll go back to our original motion, which is a motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Wilmot, to open a public hearing regarding item 9A, which is summary ordinance number 12,325. Council members, please vote to open your hearing. 9B. 9B, we're on 9B. Did I say 9A? I'm so sorry. We're on 9B. Yes, please vote to open your hearing. Yes, ma'am, we're opening the hearing now. Yes, ma'am, we're opening the hearing for item 9B. Sorry. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0 to open your hearing. We're now in a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to address, I believe that the Planning Department has a presentation this evening. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. You ready to go? The applicant is Mr. Troy Gendusa with the municipal address of 405 Williams Boulevard, Kenner, Louisiana, 70058. The property owner is the city of Kenner. The building fronts the west side of Williams Boulevard and is generally bounded by Short Street to the north, 4th Street to the south, and Minor Street to the west. The property is zoned RHD, Rivertown Historic District. The building is located within the core area of the Rivertown Historic District. The commercial core area contains most of the historic buildings and commercial uses in Rivertown. The building is a single-story, 680-square-foot detached raised frame structure with a brick veneer and stucco exterior. The building has been recently used as a banquet and meeting hall. On July 26, 2017, an appraisal was performed by Wayne Sandoz and Associates, estimating the annual fair market rental value of the building at $7,800 or $650 per month. The applicant has agreed to the terms and conditions of the appraisal. On November 15th, the Planning Commission recommended denial. That concludes my presentation.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address us on summary ordinance number 12,325?
Close.
Hearing no other discussion, motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Wilmot to close your hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing. Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Wilmot for approval. Councilman Carroll, would you like to open? Okay, hold on.
For the sake of clarity and to make sure we're all on the same page, I don't want to get convoluted. I am withdrawing my plea for the deferral. I will be in supportive, along with Councilman Reynold and hopefully everyone else, to move forward on this one, and I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Councilman DeFrances, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. I will be voting yes. We spoke about this at our agenda meeting. All of the issues that Councilman Reyno pointed out came out at that meeting. This is a benefit to the city to move forward with this. It actually is a benefit not only to the city, of course, but to the whole community. Gendusa's has been a very important part of District 1. It has brought a lot of people into District 1, and that's what we need people to do, to come to District 1 to see all the many wonderful things that District 1 has to offer. And the only way you do it is by enticing people to come down there and see firsthand. And that has been happening. To take away the second small portion that for which he's willing to pay, I think would actually reduce the number of people. I think it would be a detriment. It would be something negative, and therefore I am supporting it. I think it's a positive. And this is and I have to point this out. 9B and 9C are totally separate, distinct issues. You can support one and be against the other. You can be in favor of one and want to defer the other. They are separate issues, and they should be treated that way. This is a positive issue for the city and for Mr. Gendusa, and I am supporting it for that reason. Thank you.
Councilman Carroll, would you like to speak again?
Yes. And again, like I said, I ask everyone's support. I agree with my councilwoman. It's two different ordinances. They are two separate buildings, but there are some things that are similar. The individual who was requesting is the same person. So it's not totally separate. It's two separate buildings. We will have two separate lease agreements, but some of the things are related because it's the same individual, just like if it was the same company. And those are the things based on my conversations with the planning department, with Mr. Ince from the Community Development and with the Historical Development Committee. Some of those things crossed over, and that is why some of it is separate, but some of the information was the same because it's the same person. But let's go forward and move on with, and I think we talked enough about it. So I'll thank for your support.
Vote.
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Next item.
Item 9C is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,326, an ordinance approving the lease of the existing building and improvement located on portions of Lot W-3, Plot H, Kenner Orleans subdivision, Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, bearing the municipal address of 402 Williams Boulevard for the sum of $1,050 per month for a 12-month term. Mr. Chairman, I've also received a request per Councilman Carroll for a two-meeting deferral. I have a motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilmember Reyno for a two-meeting deferral. Is there any discussion on the deferral this evening? Hearing none, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 for a two-meeting deferral. Item 9D is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 12,327, an ordinance amending ordinance number 11,195 to provide for rental of Buddy Lawson Gym for repass receptions and to establish fees for equipment rental at Kenner facilities. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember DeFrances, to open up a public hearing tonight. Council members, please vote to open your hearing. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to open the hearing. Is there anyone in the public wishing to address the council tonight on this issue? Please come forward.
There's no one.
Hearing none, I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember DeFrances, to close your public hearing this evening. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember DeFrances for approval. Is there any discussion? Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank everyone for their support. This was a little bit harder than I thought it was. I'd like to thank the mayor, the administration, the legal department, and the number of recreation department to be able to work on all the particulars to be able to put this in place. This is a building, Buddy Lawson Gym. Everybody's from the city of Kenner, particularly District 1, is very, very, very familiar with Buddy Lawson Gym. The city of Kenner offers a plethora of buildings to have parties, to have anniversary dinners, a number of things. Actually, we don't have enough. That's part of what we're working on through the city of Kenner, the mayor, Rivertown, and all over the city. That being said, a number of families who would like the confounds of where they live, particularly in District 1, even though it's not for District 1, it's for everybody. It's a sense of encouragement, it's a sense of solace, it's a sense of knowing that, you know, this is for our family members to meet, and it's easier for location for people to get there. I think it's important for us to have a location or a venue where we offer this to the people in the city of Kenner, one more venue to offer. So I believe, along with the recreation department, to provide the ambiance, to ensure that it is a safe, clean environment, along with the police department, along with all of the legal aspect that has taken place. This is just one more reason that shows that the city of Kenner, we have empathy for certain things. And this is it. You know, there's always going to be something, but this shows that we are reaching out, trying to show that we have empathy. We want to support the citizens, even in times when things are sad for the family. So I will ask for your support. It's not just for District 1, it's for the whole city. Hopefully you can pass the word out to different people. And for some people who may not know what a repast is, it is a congregation of family and friends after someone is buried to come in and to share stories, to talk about that individual, to laugh about the good things and the bad things, but it is an opportunity for some closure to start. So this is very, very, very important for people, for families, for myself and everyone else in this building. So again, I ask for your support for this particular new rental building for citizens in the city of Kenner. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman Reyno?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be supporting this, but I wanted to give a little information to the public, or ask the administration to give a little information if that need be. We're just adding this building, this Buddy Lawson Gym, to the other buildings that are already on a list to be available for rental from our recreation department. And an example would be the pavilion, or, am I correct?
No, not for repass. There's only 2 buildings available for repass. That would be the Council on Aging, which was already in the booking ordinance and allowed.
Okay.
This is adding an additional venue, the Buddy Lawson Gym. So those 2 facilities are available for repass.
But it's still a,
MLK Resource Center.
right, but it's still, in other words, it's handled through the recreation department, and it's handled no differently than any other city building that we currently lease out, like the pavilion. I know the pavilion's not one for a repass, but in other words, I was trying to, give an example that just like you can rent the pavilion, you'll now be able to rent Buddy Lawson Gym, as well as, what is it, the MLK, you said?
Okay, and the Council on Aging.
And the Council on Age.
Yes, but I guess what you're driving at is, it's covered by all the same rules, all the same procedures, insurance, police details, all those same rules that are applicable in the booking ordinance are going to apply to the rental of Buddy Lawson for repass. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mrs. Roussel. That's exactly what I wanted the public to hear. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Close?
Yes, to close. Thank you, Mr. President. And that's exactly what I meant earlier when I said that this was not as simple as it may seem, that it took the attorneys, it took the administration, it took the CEO, it took the mayor, it took all of us recreation to ensure that we weren't going outside of the realm for this, and we have not. Because it is a recreation building, you can't have alcohol, you can't bring firearms. All of those things still apply, so nothing changes here for that, but we had to make sure when we wrote this that it was clear to everyone that it is still a recreation facility. But we are reaching out to be able to support people as much as we can in the city of Kenner. Thank you, Mr. President.
Please vote.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Okay, next item.
Item 9E is a public hearing regarding Resolution Number B 16852, a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3344 Maryland Avenue in Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Klein, to open your hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to open your hearing. We're now in a public hearing, and I believe the Code Enforcement Department has a presentation this afternoon.
Thank you, Council President. The structure in question is a 2-story, single-family, pile-supported foundation bearing the municipal address of 3344 Maryland. The property is owned by a Mr. Thomas J. Gray. On July 19, 2017, it was determined that the property located at 3344 Maryland was unsafe and dangerous under the building codes for the city of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57 et al. Of the Code of Ordinance for the city of Kenner. Also, on September 13, 2017, a notice was sent by certified mail to the property owner advising him of the property violations. After the certified letter was returned unclaimed and being unable to locate the property owner, curator was appointed by the city. It is noted in the report of the engineer retained by the city of Kenner, who provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and/or abandonment. Utilities have been disconnected for several years. Structure seems abandoned. Vegetation is overgrown at the rear south of the property. Roof sheathing along the soffit fascia are damaged in the vicinity of the electrical drop feed. The door to the shed at the rear of the property, as well as the door leading to a utility room in the residence, is open, and the interior is accessible to the public. Based on the report of the engineer, it is recommended that the structure is a severe safety issue to the public due to reasons of inadequate maintenance, and is hereby declared to be a public nuisance. It is further recommended the structure must be immediately abated.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address the council this evening?
We have somebody coming.
Okay.
Put your microphone. Yeah, we.
Good evening, John Becknell, 3445 North Causeway Boulevard, Metairie, Louisiana, curator ad hoc for the absent defendant Thomas J. Gray. I'd like to file the following note of evidence. Upon being appointed curator ad hoc, I caused to be run in the Times-Picayune newspaper the following ad. Anyone knowing the whereabouts of Thomas J. Gray, please contact John W. Becknell III, attorney, at 504-833-7325. This ad ran October 8th, 11th, and 13th, 2017. The certificate of publication is attached here too as Curator's Exhibit A. I then ran an internet search to obtain additional information regarding the whereabouts of the absent defendant, but it provided Curator with no additional addresses belonging to the absent defendant besides the property address. I then sent certified letters dated October 5th, 2017 and November 3rd, 2017 to the absent defendant at 3344 Maryland Avenue, Kenner, Louisiana 70065, with a copy of the prior correspondence sent to the absent defendant by the city and a copy of the code violations affecting the property enclosed with my letter. Those letters are attached here too as Curator's Exhibit B. The first certified letter sent on October 5th, 2017 was lost by the U.S. Post Office, but the second certified letter sent on November 3rd, 2017 was claimed by the absent defendant on November 9th, 2017. Proof of delivery is attached here too as Curator's Exhibit C. Additionally, on September 13th, 2017, the city mailed Mennonite letters to Sheriff Newell Norman, Regions Mortgage, Inc., and the Department of Treasury, all of which were claimed. These letters are attached here too as Curator's Exhibit D. To date, I've received no response from the absent defendant. On information and belief, my duties have been fulfilled. An invoice detailing my expenses incurred in connection with my duties in this matter is attached here too as Curator's Exhibit E. I now desire to be relieved of any further duties in this matter and that the party requesting my appointment be ordered to reimburse myself for expenses and fees. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
Is there any other comment from the public tonight? Hearing none, council members, motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Klein to close your hearing tonight. Please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing. Motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Klein to approve tonight. Councilmember Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just to add to the diligence of the Code Enforcement Department on their inspecting of this building and the attempts to get it rectified. This goes back even as far back as Katrina, but at least in the last several years after my election, the residents in the area made it clear to me the issue there. And in fact, during the early part of my term, in looking at this house, the house had a very large hole in the roof for probably 7-8 months, a year, I'm not sure exactly, but that hole obviously allowed for a tremendous amount of water to be infiltrating inside the house. So without being totally available to get in there and look at it, I assume that it's covered in mold because of this tremendous amount of water that went in there. Eventually, at some point after notification by code enforcement, the owner did come and make repairs to that roof, so be it to appear to stop the water from going in. But other than that, he has not made any real attempts to take care of his property, and it's only after some actions by the code would he come out and make very minimal attempts to take care of his property. So this piece of property is, as stated, a very unsafe and very eyesore, so that the certainly all the grounds are there based on the engineers and the codes inspections for it to be taken down. The fact that the curator's attempts to locate the owner, I think you did say one letter was accepted, so he did have notice of this and chose not to take any actions, is clear of his intentions to never take any action. So I encourage my fellow members to support and approve this legislation. Thank you.
Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't know if Mr. Becknell can answer this or if I need to ask Mr. Wetzel this. Are the taxes, the property taxes, delinquent in this? I mean, you said that he received a letter, so I'm just wondering, has he been paying property taxes on this property? Well,
Since notice from the city was given to Sheriff Normand, I assume he was delinquent in some taxes.
okay. Well, I mean, we collect property taxes in Kenner as well as Jefferson Parish collects, and I was just curious, you know, because he signed for the, usually you don't get anybody to sign, and here somebody signed for it, and now I'm just a little confused as
Correct.
to.
He signed for the letter in November, but he never contacted me after that.
That's okay. Look, I'm going to vote for this, but for the past 6 years, I've never heard of somebody coming up and signing for a letter and not showing up here to appear or anything, you know? So, but that doesn't mean it hadn't happened prior to 6 years ago, but, you know, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Foshee would like to speak now.
Councilman, I'll follow up on that particular issue, but just for purposes of clarification, the sheriff does, we collect taxes, but they're collected by the sheriff and given to us. So all taxes are paid to the sheriff, and then Kenner's property taxes are given to us by the sheriff. So we don't have a separate, like, we don't go and collect separately. No.
Do write checks to the city.
Oh, sales tax. Okay, so
and
you're,
y'all
all
do
right.
send out
Never
property
mind.
tax bills.
I take that back.
That's okay.
I'm gonna, the CFO is gonna answer that question for you.
Basically, yes, property taxes. I don't have the information as to whether or not they were paid, but I can give you that information.
I'm still voting for this.
Yeah.
That happened in the 6 years that I've served up here on the council, and that's what was confusing to me, that somebody would sign for a letter, not show up at a meeting, and then maybe he was paying his taxes, and I just wanted to find out if he was. So, but it's all okay, thank you. Sorry for the confusion.
You want to close? Close. Okay, no further discussion. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Next.
Item 9F is a public hearing regarding resolution number B 16853, a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3511 Arkansas Avenue, Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Han, to open your public hearing this evening. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. We're now in a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience? Councilman, Code Enforcement Department has a presentation tonight.
Thank you, Council President. This structure is a one-story, single-family pile-supported slab foundation bearing the address of 3511 Arkansas. On September 11, 2017, a fire occurred at this address due to criminal activity, and it was determined by the certified building official that it sustained 75% fire damage and a total loss. Property is owned by a Miss Heather Owen. On October 18, 2017, a notice was sent certified mail to the property owner advising her of the property violations. After notice was received, Ms. Owens came into our office, advised us that she had no intention of correcting the violations due to lack of funds and no insurance. As of this date, no action has been taken to correct the code violations. It is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner, provide the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidation, and abandonment. Utilities have been disconnected. Window and doors along the front structure have been boarded up. Access to the rear property has been prohibited from the installation, has been prohibited by the installation of plywood. This was done because the property owner and two other subjects were living in a shed in the back and stealing electricity from neighbors. Recent fire on the northern side of the structure has occurred, thus causing severe damage to the structure. A number of wooden members at the front of the building have severe fire damage, thus compromising the structural integrity of it. Based on the report of the engineer, the structure is a serious public hazard, is in imminent danger of collapse due to the damage. We recommend the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance, have it abated by repair, and brought up to the current city codes and ordinance or demolished.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this ordinance? Is there a curator?
There's no one. A curator?
We need one, we made service.
I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, second by Councilmember Han, to close the public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0 to close your hearing. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Han for approval. Councilmember Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you. I think since we've all seen the pictures of this residence, that it's fairly obvious that this is certainly a house in need of demolition, that it cannot be repaired, and doesn't have any intention of being repaired, as the code director has said, that the owner has instructed him to do what he needs to do, since she has no ability to make any form of repair. So for the safety of the neighborhood and herself and others who are were temporarily trying to live in it or in the yard, that we need to remove this safety hazard and move forward. So I urge everyone to vote for it. Thank you.
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 9G is a public hearing regarding resolution number B16854, a resolution calling a public hearing to determine whether the structures located at 3044 Jasper Street, Kenner, Louisiana, shall be abated by repair, rehabilitation, demolition, or removal. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot, to open the public hearing. Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. We're now in a public hearing, and the Code Enforcement Department has a presentation as well.
Thank you. This one-story, single-family, pile-supported slab foundation has a detached garage bearing the municipal address of 3044 Jasper Street. Property is owned by a Mr. and Mrs. James Lemoyne. On August 18, 2017, it was determined that the building code for the City of Kenner, as well as Section 5-57, it's all of the Code of Ordinance for the City of Kenner. September 13th, a notice was sent certified mail to the property owners advising them of the property and building violations. The notice was sent to the property owners at the above referenced address, as well as addresses found via search engines. After the certified mail was returned unclaimed and being unable to locate the property owners, a curator was appointed by the city. As of this date, the violations have not been corrected, nor have there been any attempts to comply. The city has been maintaining this property for several years, and there's currently an amount owed of $13,616 to the city. City of Kenner has also contacted the services of an engineer, contracted the service of an engineer. It is noted by the report of the engineer retained by the City of Kenner, who provided the following reasons of inadequate maintenance, dilapidations, and abandonment. Power has been disconnected. Number of doors and windows are not boarded up. Some of the windows have been broken. Hinges to the exterior door has separated from the frame, thus allowing access to the interior of the structure. Roof shingles are missing on the northern side of the structure. The roof framing is collapsed, thus compromising the stability of the roof and the structure. Ground settlement has occurred in certain areas around the perimeter of the slab, thus exposing the underside of the slab and providing an area of harbor vermin and pests. Based on the report of the engineer, these structures continue to be a public hazard. Furthermore, we recommend that the city take the steps necessary to declare it a public nuisance and have it abated by demolition or brought up to the current city codes and ordinance. Note that when I went there to take those pictures you saw, there was 2 people sleeping inside the residence. It didn't belong there. I know the Kenner Police Department have been called there numerous times because of people trespassing. That's the end of mine, and I believe you have Ms. Sophie here to give you her attempts to notify the owners.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Sophie Rosado of the Rosado Law Firm. The address is P.O. Box 641887, Kenner, Louisiana 70064. I was appointed as the curator to locate Mr. and Mrs. James Lemoyne. I ran an internet background search on a website called Intellius for these defendants. On October 14th of 2017, I mailed 4 letters to the addresses provided by the report. Of the 4 certified letters that were mailed to the defendants, 3 were returned unclaimed, 1 was returned claimed with return receipt. A copy of all letters and return certified slips are included in my curator's exhibits. On October 13th of 2017, I called all numbers on the Intellius reports for all defendants, to which I left a message on 1 phone number, and all other phone numbers rang until disconnecting with no voicemail and no answer. Mennonite letters were sent by the City of Kenner to Mr. and Mrs. Lemoyne, First American Bank and Trust, and Barawa Investments, LLC on September 13th of 2017. A copy of those letters with return certified receipt slips are included in my curator exhibits. Not convinced all named defendants had been found, I ran an ad in the Times-Picayune, which ran on December 1st, 3rd, and 6th of 2017, and to date, I have not received any phone calls regarding this property. Those are the steps that I took to locate the named defendants, and my search is concluded.
Are there any questions from the council member? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to address tonight?
See none.
Hearing none, council members, please vote to close your hearing tonight. Mr. Chairman, motion passes to close your hearing. Motion by Councilmember Carroll, second by Councilmember Wilmot for approval. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. President. If my vision is working correctly, this is the residence on Jasper and 31st Street in the Lincoln Manor subdivision, correct? And thank you. This has been an eyesore for, like you say, for a number of years. A lot of complaints from the people that live in that area. The fact that the G.T. Wood School is a little bit down the road, and only the students, the children that live in the Lincoln Manor subdivision attend the G.T. Wood School, which means they walk or ride their bike, most of them, to school. There have been a number of concerns concerning the safety, what goes on. Sometimes crazy thing goes on at night and sometimes during the day. So I'm sure they're going to be overwhelmed and happy about this, and we want to thank the Code Department for finally we nailed this down to get this taken care of. Thanks for all your support. The police department that always would have to come out, not only to this particular property, but there's one exactly across the street that they also have to come out to. So, you know, one at a time, we are doing the job of securing blighted property that we all agree is a concern in the city of Kenner with the sweeps. with the properties that's going to be addressed like tonight. So thanks again for your support, sir, and I would ask for everyone's support on this. Thank you.
Councilman Reno, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President. I also will be supporting this. Let me start that way. And here's a second one that's come up. I can't believe this because, you know, I've been on this council for almost 6 years, and I don't remember anyone where they signed accepting, you know, a letter, registered letter, and not. So I'm going to ask the same question. Do we know, Mr. Wetzel, if any taxes are owed on this? Okay, and well,
Right. Some of that money's taxes, some of that money is the upkeep, maintenance on the property.
okay, so some of it is taxes. It's not just for cutting lawns or boarding up the house. Or
It's all the liens that have been put on the property. And just so that you're aware, we used to have reserve Kenner policeman who this was his in-laws that lived there. The male died. In fact, I'm sure that both of these folks died in a senior center in Houma. He was a Pacific War Marine veteran, and they would have both been in their 90s. The siblings from that, who I tried to call to try to get them to do something with this property, nobody went, they have nothing to do with it. So they've just allowed it to get to this decay. And it's, like I said, over the years, Kenner Police have been called there a number of times because of people living in both the garage that's in the back as well as the residence. And so I think, as Councilman Carroll's, we're doing everybody a favor in the neighborhood by tearing this house down.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf.
Sir?
Just to clarify, the letter that was accepted by a Mr. Andrew. The last name is illegible, but is not Lemoyne.
Okay. And then I just have one other question, which I'm going to ask the legal department. The city's owed a substantial amount of money in taxes and liens on this. So once this home is demolished, if these two owners, as Mr. Walther said, were in their 90s and they're now deceased, how does the city ever recover that money? Is that recovered at a...
It would remain as a lien on the property. It would probably have to be reinscribed after, I think it's 10 years. But it would remain as a lien on the property, and if the property ever was sold, then that would all have to be worked out at the closing, at the act of sale. I don't know that it would, I mean, I guess it would have to be sold for the city to realize any of those funds back.
And would the property be sold at a sheriff's sale to pay off the property taxes?
If there's a lien holder, if there's a bank that holds a mortgage, yes. I mean, it would basically go to a sheriff's sale.
And if there is no bank that's holding a mortgage, let's say the property was paid for, but there's still property tax bills coming out, and if those bills aren't paid and it goes to a sheriff's sale, is it just sold for the taxes, or?
I don't really know, Councilman Reno. I know that, I mean, what we're doing tonight, you're authorizing a demolition, and the cost of that demolition will be assessed as a lien against the property. So it will be tacked on to that $13,000 that's already outstanding for the grass liens for however many years we've been cutting the grass and leaning the property. So it will just remain there. The property would have to be put back into commerce by someone coming in and being interested in purchasing the property. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So we're spending more money that we're probably not going to get back, but it still needs to be, for a safety purpose, it needs to come down. I understand that.
We don't
but I
ever like
just
to demo,
wanted-
but sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
No further discussion? No, we're on approval. Okay, go ahead, sir. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Mr. President. And I just have a couple of responses to Councilman Reno when he said that he's been on the council a number of years, and he and I have been about the same time, that he hasn't seen it. I disagree with that. It happens more than you think, and maybe because that's attributed to District 1 as opposed to District 3. But maybe that's attributed to because District 1 is the oldest district in the city, and we're going to have older properties, so it happens more. And lastly, I have talked on the phone with individuals before the meetings who have come into the council to address their property that could have been in their grandfather, grandparents. And they would come in and say they would want to discuss this. But when they got here, they didn't come up to talk. Now, it is much easier to go into the Office of Code and Planning and to sign a letter for certain things than it is as an individual to come here in front of everyone and to admit to showing all these pictures, to show some of the things that have happened over the years. You go through all these emotions where you lived in this house all your life. It's much tougher to come here for that. And that is why people would come and would not come up. And you could see it in their face that they just couldn't do that, understanding from a financial position, they did not have the money to address it. And they did not want to come up in front of everyone to be scrutinized or to be judged on certain things. So it happens more than we think, and there are a number of reasons why, like I said, particularly in District 1, and I'm only speaking for District 1, why I believe, because it's the oldest part of the city. The homes are obviously older. So that being said, and it will continue to happen like this all over the city. But we're doing a good job about situations today that we did, and we will hopefully continue to along this path with the sweeps, with the administration to ensure that we are being a safer place to live for us and our children. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. Item 12A is summary ordinance number 12,329, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of Lot 14-A, 141516, Square 9, Beachview Heights, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Klein. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you. This piece of property that the administration is interested in purchasing on behalf of the city is in furtherance of the action that we took back in December to try to find a suitable location for the Hispanic Resource Center and or a place for them to meet. So this property is immediately adjacent to the current location of our Hispanic Resource Center, and the purchase of this will allow the administration to explore other options to expand the facility that's there now, which we agree that the building that's there now needs some attention. So if I can, though, I would like to ask the mayor to elaborate on where he thinks he'll go with this.
Thank you, Councilman Segura. Let me first start by saying, if y'all pass this tonight, this does not lock us into having to purchase this property. This is basically just to be able, you all are giving us the ability to, if we're going to do this, to actually go and negotiate with the property owner. As we had said in the past, because, let me back up, we're looking at that spot. That's one spot. We're also looking at other areas throughout the city, properties that we already own, so we wouldn't have to purchase, or something, possibly a lease in the future. We're not for sure, but at least this gives us the ability, if we can do everything on this property we want to, numerous discussions with most of the council, you know that I believe all of our agreement is that we could house everything in one location, maybe in portable buildings for the time being, because this would give us 2 lots next to each other for a Veterans Resource Center, Affairs Center, a community center for our Council on Aging, and also something multicultural. Nothing against the Hispanic Resource Center, but we have needs for other groups throughout the city also. So this would be a perfect spot if we can do that. This is just giving us that ability that with y'all's blessing, that we could actually enter into those agreements. We are continuing to look at other things, and I told most of y'all today or the other day that we were doing that. This is how we're going to move forward with making all the groups throughout the city of Kenner happy. I would love to be able to look, we're going to go look probably next week at another location, at one of our existing buildings. I'd just like to speak to that district councilman before I actually announce that publicly, and I plan on doing that tomorrow. Tom got away from us today, we weren't able to address that with him. If we could do something internal that we already have at one of our buildings, then we could take this money that's already in a capital budget, and I think it's from 2007, 2008. This is capital monies for this center. We could actually use that to rehab the building that we have. So, in closing, give us this ability to possibly enter into this if we want to. We will do nothing until we speak to each and every one of you all of what we're doing, but it's just something that I think we need to show the community we are not stopping the progress of any resource center. It's just that building something right now throughout the city of Kenner is probably impossible because of our financial issues, that we should be using what we have or purchasing property where we can get buildings that are loaned to us by a local businessman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another question that I had, and I don't know if Ms. Roussel was able to get an answer to, relative to, as we discussed earlier, the process is if this is approved, then you will order a appraisal, and then based on the appraisal, we will, if needed, have the discussion with them. But the price that this land is being offered at I had a question, so were you able to get an answer to that?
Yes, the price for this land is listed at $145,000. However, the legislation you're considering tonight says $145,000 or appraised value, whichever is less. Again, as the mayor said, it does not commit us to purchase the property, and I think, Councilman Segura, we would wait to get that appraisal until the administration decides how they want to move forward by exploring these other options that he mentioned.
Okay, and just for clarity, my question was the real estate agent able to confirm that it was never listed for any less than this $140,000?
He said as long as the current owner, he's been owning, and I think his name is Mr. John Branch, I want to say, 2003, he's owned it since 2003. Since that time, that's what, 15 years, it's never been listed for $60,000, or any, I guess 60,000 was the number that we discussed in our meeting today, so I'm going to use that figure.
Okay. So the listing agent, in conjunction with speaking with the owner of the land for the last 15 years, has verified that this land was never listed for anything in the neighborhood of 60,000, more or less, less than the 140. So that's what he's asking now.
Since 2003, right.
Yes. And then so now that he's asking that price, you, with this approval tonight, will get the appraisal and then move forward depending on what that comes in at. Okay, thank you.
Councilman Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be in favor of the city purchasing the lot where the existing cultural center is. I think it's a good idea. It would expand not only the facilities, but also the parking. And we have money that's been itemized for this facility, and I think we should try to get a new building there for the cultural center. Make it bigger, make it better, make it larger, and I think it's in very high use right now, and it will have even more people using it if we can build a new building at the present site. So I would be in favor of the city exploring the possibility of buying this lot and expanding those facilities. Whether you want to call it the Hispanic Cultural Center, cultural centers, the Veterans Center, whatever, I think we should expand those facilities right where they are. Thank you.
Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Council President. I'm going to be asking everyone to vote against this because there's no reason that the city needs to acquire additional property. We have property all around the city that the city owns, multiple pieces of property. In fact, we recently sold some property that we owned on Williams Boulevard, one to the Waffle House and another one to Habitat for Humanity for a project that they're building. There's no need to acquire any additional property. And I heard what the administration said in that, well, we may not buy it or we may buy it, we're looking at other options. Well, then there's no need to pass this legislation. I mean, to pass this legislation and not sure whether you want to buy it or not. The other thing that I have a problem with is that the city has expended approximately $91,000 of taxpayer dollars on plans for a new Hispanic Resource Center. And, to me, that's a waste of taxpayers' dollars. That building will not fit on, even if you take the trailers that the current Hispanic Resource Center is on and move the trailers, and then you'd have 2 lots, the building will not fit on those 2 lots. So I think this is a bad move for the city. I don't think the city needs to acquire more property when we have surplus property that we're selling. So it's a matter of finding another site that works. So I would ask that you not support this legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilman DeFranchise, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm not in favor of this either. We do have other properties, that's number one. Number two, we've talked about possibly rehabbing. You cannot rehab a trailer, an old trailer that is not even secure on its foundation. Sometimes it's more cost-effective. Yesterday, I went to Washington Elementary, and they had a meeting there, and they were trying to decide whether they should rehab some old schools or whether they should demolish those old schools and build new schools. And one of the things that when you discuss that type of issue is you have to look at the cost of the rehab. If the cost of the rehab is great, it becomes more cost-effective than to just demolish and build something new. That trailer is off its foundation. It doesn't have insulation. Rehabbing, to me, is not cost-effective. We do have other properties. I do not see that this is the best use of city dollars. I am in favor of moving forward. And, when we do have the opportunity to build a new center, I understand that we have to look at all types of options. I also understand we have plans that can be modified. We don't have to build something quite as large. We have to make sure that we have the resources we need to fund it properly. And at the same time, we have a lot of opportunities to modify the plans without totally disregarding the plans on which we spend quite a bit of money. So at this point in time, this does not seem to me the best use of city dollars. So I will be voting against it.
Mr. Mayor, you have
And I'm still in favor, as I said, of the center itself.
Mr. Mayor?
Just for clarification, no rehabbing. I said tearing that one down and putting some portable buildings that we could get from a local business person. So I apologize for the misunderstanding.
If you will, Mr. Taft, name and address.
My name is Greg Taft. I live at 3720 West Loyola Drive in Kenner. My issue is simply this. I think you're putting the cart in front of the horse, voting on this legislation. Partly what Mayor Zahn is saying is right, is that he wants to continue to look at options. And that part is good. You don't need this legislation to look at other options. Now, it may take another month or so, but I think the idea is you want to give the community something that they can hang their hat on. And this legislation doesn't do that if we're saying, well, I may use it or I may not. The idea is let's formulate a plan of where we do want to put it. The second issue, We spend $145,000 on the property. To me, you're taking away the money that would build, that you could use to build a new center, since we have property that we already own. So that, to me, is not being very wise, because you need to take care of the assets you got, because you can utilize them much better than trying to buy another asset that you're going to hang on, that you got hung on to. The other thing, too, is size. If you was to build a resource center that will truly handle North Kenner, because that's what this is all about, is North Kenner, it's going to have to be a pretty fair size, and those lots together may not be big enough to allow the parking you're talking about with the size of center that you would actually need. So I'm just asking y'all to vote against this, because like I said, I don't think this is the direction to go, but I think we're on the right track in looking at the other options to take care of the North Kenner residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teff. Ms. Rayno, would you like to speak? Name and address, please.
Donna Rayno, 42 Emile Avenue. I have to say thank you, Keith and Maria, for saying you'd vote against this. This would almost be $250,000 in waste for the city of Kenner. We already spent the 90-something thousand on the works for the property over off of Florida, or at the end of Florida, and you're looking to spend another 150 in case you might want to, but don't know if you're going to, but should maybe look at it, because there's no point in this. It's absolutely a waste of time, waste of money. We have the space, we had the money. It's kind of rude to roll your eyes when people are talking to you too. And
Ms. Rayno, please.
I didn't roll my eyes.
Please refrain from making those comments. Thank you. You can continue.
Okay, so just saying that it's a total waste of time and a total waste of money. We've already invested the money in the spot that they were looking to put it at over at the end of Florida Avenue. And I think that is the best choice without wasting time and money on this lot.
Thank you. No one else?
I have a motion by Council, would you like to close, sir? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank everyone for their contributions and comments on this matter. And it's certainly always the intent of the council, the administration, to do what's best and look for the best options. But sometimes you need to have the multiple options before you can decide that. So the option of moving forward with this is not the approval of the purchase. Am I correct?
That's correct. You're not locking us into anything. And I'll respond to some of the comments that it's just a backup plan if some other things don't work. The whole promise a few council meetings ago was that we would promise that we would come back and do something to show that we're trying to do a resource center somewhere in the city. If you don't pass this tonight, if you do pass this tonight, this does not lock you into it. If you don't pass it and some other possibilities fall through that we have out there, then I got to come back again, and it delays the progress of the resource center that I believe everyone is interested in. So this, look, simply in business, this is another plan. You have a few plans when you're running a business. While we're running this $60 million business, we need to have backup plans, because obviously council meetings only happen twice a month, and there's layovers and there's first readings, and these things take time. The more you defer the city business, the longer we do not prosper moving forward in the city of Kenner and helping our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, yeah, and as I was saying, this is an option that allows the administration to consider other options as well as an option to purchase the land. And if the purchase of the land, I'm sorry, is it? Okay. Hearing voices in my ear, I wasn't sure if you were talking to me. If the option is to explore the possibility of negotiating the purchase of the land, and then these other options, as you said, may not truly become the top rated, you have available the option to purchase the land, which will come back to us for that approval. And a landowner doesn't necessarily think, oh, they're not interested, I'll go somewhere else. And then we do lose that option to purchase that land immediately next to where we already have a center. And then, as you said, the option is to look at what we can do at that site with the existing land that we own, and then if the option bears out to purchase it, put a building. Now, what that building is still where we're at. We don't know if it's going to be, and I correct, as you said, it will not be any refurbing or rehabbing the existing building. It will be some additional building, because there are all sorts of buildings that we can obtain. I mean, look at Discovery School. They're using modular buildings as their existing classrooms that people are loving right now. And at some point, I would imagine they're going to be available because when they're finished with them, when their new school becomes built, they're going to get rid of them. So, but even if we didn't want to wait that long, those types of buildings do have a value. The $91,000 that was mentioned that was spent on the architect, yeah, that's a set of plans. Now, if it became optional, then with very little cost, those plans could be reduced to fit to that size lot that would be available with the purchase of additional land. So again, these are the options, and this is all this legislation is doing, is just adding this other option to explore. So that's why I certainly in favor and encourage others to do the same, just to allow the administration to continue exploring all options and not just be fixated on one idea of putting a close to $900,000 building, maybe another $100,000 in fixtures and furnitures, and who knows what else on a piece of land that is not really necessary to do. So appreciate it if everyone would support this and allow the administration to explore these options. Thank you.
Councilman, so your Councilwoman Ria DeFrances has a question for legal, if you allow the question.
Oh, I closed. I just finished.
Okay. Finished? Okay.
Oh, I don't care. It's up to the chairman.
Let her ask the question, please.
I'm sorry, to City Attorney Lee Roussel, I simply have one simple little question. When you read it says an ordinance authorizing the purchase of, and then it goes on, I'm not going to read the whole thing. So if we're authorizing the purchase of, if the administration should come to a conclusion that the price is right and they want to move forward, my simple question was, do they have to come back before the council to get approval? And I don't think they do, and that's why I'm asking you the question, would I be correct?
No.
Because we're authorizing the purchase if the administration should agree it's the right thing to do.
This authorizes the purchase. We can sign a purchase agreement. Actually, the owner who's offering the property for sale has already signed that. We were waiting until this legislation was approved so that we could have the mayor execute the purchase agreement, which would spell out the terms and
Right.
have a, time period in there within which, we would close and no penalty to either, especially the city, for not closing.
No,
so
no,
for
I
not
understand that.
acquiring the property. So, but, right. The actual deed would, no, it wouldn't.
We authorize the purchase, it's authorized.
Well,
If you agree that it's a good deal,
I think this
it's
authorizes
authorized,
the
no?
purchase. Yeah, I mean, we don't buy property every day, so the deed would come before the council if legal determined that it was necessary. We would go through a title company likely to do this, so it would all be done in accordance with how properties purchased.
Right,
We
the way we
mostly
normally
sell
do.
property, so this is sort of a unique, novel situation. But yes, we could put the deed before the council. We should put the deed before the council.
But you don't have to.
No, legally, we would do it, yes.
Councilman Segur, the mayor has pushed his button for the cube. Would you mind if he answers, since you've already closed? I'm asking. Thank you. Mayor, if you will, you have the floor.
Let me just clarify this. You're right. but I would not do it without coming back to you all. So that's my commitment, that just like any other time, y'all know, this administration with this council has been very open. I would not make a purchase of $145,000, probably not of $1, unless coming back to you all to show y'all what we're doing on something that's been an issue for the last few months particularly. Again, this is not a private ownership. This is a government issue. When in government, it doesn't move as quick as private companies do. So this is just a formality that we need in case we go down that direction. I will call 3 of y'all in at one time and let you all know before we do anything what direction we're going in. Like I said earlier, I need to speak to one of you all privately to see if there's a existing area that could be used, and there's some other options. If those things fall through, I will be back to this council saying those things have fallen through, so now we can move forward, and this is where we're going.
Councilwoman DeFrancis, if it would,
I'm sorry. No, I'm not taking, Maria, I'm not taking it that way. I just want you to know, because you asked a valid question, I'm trying to give you an answer that we don't have to come back, but we will come back.
and Mayor and Councilwoman DeFrancis, if it would make you feel more comfortable, you can always offer an amendment to this legislation to say that the deed would have to be approved by ordinance of the council. So that's also a possibility.
Cue's clear. Oh, lit up. Councilman Segura.
That's where I was going to go next, was at this point to make that clear that what I appreciated, and I respect Councilwoman DeFrancis's question, because if it was not clear to her, then I want to make it clear that the administration had every intent to come back to the council before it was purchased. So I'll ask for an amendment to be made, and if legal can provide that language to put in here for us to consider, that basically, and that will say that he cannot sign a purchase of the property without our permission.
I can't give you the language.
Sure.
Just add a section to the legislation, Natalie. It would be an amendment, adding a section 3, that the act of sale, prior to signing the act of sale, that the council would be required to approve the deed or the act by ordinance.
Okay, if that's the motion.
Motion.
I have a motion for an amendment. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot, to amend the legislation to reflect the city attorney's verbiage. Any discussion on the amendment tonight?
I think hopefully it's clear that this is the intent of this amendment, to make it clear of what the steps will be.
Okay. Council members, please vote on the amendment this evening. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 6-1. Councilmember Reyno is opposed. Back to your original motion. Is there any further discussion on the original motion as amended? Hearing none, council members, please vote on the original motion. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 5-2. Council members Reyno and DeFrancis are opposed.
Next.
Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution accepting and adopting the System Survey and Compliance Questionnaire from the Legislative Auditor of the State of Louisiana. I have a motion by Councilmember DeFrancis, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot for approval. Councilmember DeFrancis, you have the floor.
I want to congratulate the administration because they have been very proactive in moving forward and not waiting till the last minute to get this done. And so I think this is 1 year when we can actually say we're moving forward together in the most positive way, and I just wanted to put that on the record.
Council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 13B is a resolution initiating changes to the Kenner Unified Development Code, Section 7.11 and 5.04 regarding the storage of recreational vehicle and recreational watercraft on residential lots. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Klein. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is just I use this term differently, but sometimes perhaps just putting things in proper order, or, as we just said, more clarity to the order. When we tried to introduce changes in December to the UDC relative to the boat parking, we, as we said back then, unfortunately found out the steps that were taken did not pass the legal muster. So this language will allow that the council has the means to make changes to the UDC, which in this case will affect the upcoming movement of the boat legislation by putting it through the planning department into the Planning and Zoning Board, and then back to the council in some fashion for us to then consider. So it's really more of a housekeeping, I guess, just to put this in place to say this is how changes in the future to the UDC shall come about on behalf of the council. So it's nothing to get hopefully excited about, just to say that this is further of what we promised to do in December to get this moving, keep it on schedule. It's, Jay, it's still set February 28th, correct? Okay. Sticking solid to that. It will be at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting on February 28th for their consideration, and then it will come back to us and keep us on the timeline that we laid out at that meeting. So again, I would hope that everyone would support and vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Councilman Klein, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is our effort and my effort to keep these issues, the boat issues as is commonly referred to, moving in the right direction. All parties want to try to get a resolution to the boat issues. And this is another step in resolving those issues. I see several people here that went to most of the meetings that we had, 8 or 9 meetings over the last 9 months or so, and this is another step in the right direction. The planning department now and the Planning and Zoning Board will look at this. They'll look at the issues. It's only an advisory board, so they may tweak it, they may accept it, reject it, they may change it, they may add and delete to it, but the council up here, we have the final say in what will be put in the legislation. So we're still working on all those issues, and hopefully soon, in the next couple of months or so, we should have a resolution of those issues for everyone. And our goal is to make everyone happy, and that's what we'll do. And so we're moving forward with this. And I would suggest to all interested parties that they attend the zoning, Planning and Zoning Board's meeting, which is set for February 28th. And go to the meeting and express your concerns. You know, during our meetings, we learned a lot that the citizens wanted, what they desired, what some of the pitfalls were, et cetera. And it's a good idea for all interested parties to attend that meeting on February 28th. They'll report back to the council after that, and then we'll take the appropriate steps to get these issues resolved. So thank you for allowing me to talk again. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Councilman Klein. I'd just like to add in my 2 cents on this one, because this has been a lot of work. The council, every member up here has had done something with this legislation, and we continue to do it. So I've been on this council now a little bit over a year, and this piece of legislation, we've had all kinds of facets, and it's really been a challenge, but I think it's coming together. We're doing the right thing. We're trying to make everybody happy regarding this legislation. We've had numerous meetings. We actually had a subcommittee that was appointed and so forth, and been through a lot of meetings on this issue. So I appreciate everybody's time and diligence and waiting for something to come out, but this is how it works. This is a part of the process, and I think we'll have a good outcome. So with that, like member of the public, if you will. State your name, Al, and your address.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. I want to say I support this resolution to move this legislation through the proper process since the previous process was flawed. And I also want to say that at the last council meeting, Lee Roussel was right on the money. She made it perfectly clear the first time she explained it, why she recommended that this legislation be deferred indefinite. And with that, anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Hearing no further discussion,
I have one more member from the audience. If you will, name and address, please.
Fred Miller, 4005 Delaware. I'd like to thank Mr. Franchise, Mr. Segar, Mr. Wilmot, Mr. Klein for working on that project. And I know you all put in a lot of work, but I hope when it gets to the planning board, they don't change all the good work you all did, because y'all had a very well worked out plan. And as you know from the town hall meetings, everyone kind of went along with what you all had. The one I got from Keith Raynard's office just before the last meeting, I mean, that's a very good plan. And if when it goes before the planning board, I hope you go along with it. It makes a lot of sense what they have. I mean, people own boats and they just can't keep them anywhere. I mean, if your house don't have room to put it behind, what are you gonna do? Store it in your neighbor's backyard? Don't work. But the plan they have will work. It's a very good plan. They worked a lot of hours on it, and they really did come up with a good job. I just hope that when it gets finished being tweaked, it comes out reasonably close to what you all had. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. And that concludes our
hearing no
audience statements.
further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0.
Next.
Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We had none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,330, an ordinance approving supplemental agreement number 1 to the agreement with Richard E. Lambert Consultants, LLC, for construction, engineering, and inspection-related services for the New Orleans Airport Connector Road, state project number H.011276 and H.011794, federal aid project number H.011276 and H.011794, Kenner Public Works project number 2014-003, A-RB for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember DeFranchise for approval. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,331, an ordinance accepting the responsive base bid received from Barrier Construction Company, LLC, in the amount of $376,180 for the construction of Hollanday Street, Airline Drive to the railroad tracks, City of Kenner project number 2016-003-RB, in accordance with sealed bid number 17-6410 for the Department of Public Works. I have a motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot for approval. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Council President. This again is something that has been for the people who not only live in District 1, but Hollanday Street from the airline. When they say railroad tracks, what they actually mean is Kenner Avenue. From the airline to Kenner Avenue, if you go down Hollanday, not only do you have the interference sometime of the Uber drivers, sometimes the taxi drivers, but the street itself is in horrible condition. After, you know, finalizing with the mayor's office, with the airport, with the city of Kenner, because it's not only a Kenner Road. That is one of the few crossings at Hollanday Street. The next one, I believe, is Daniel Street. After the airport closed a number of the crossings, we are limited, which means there's a lot of traffic on that street. This will improve for everyone coming from the St. Charles area and from the city of New Orleans that are going to the airport, visitors from out of town and all over. So this is something that's going to be welcome as soon as they get to work on this to fix this road from the airline to Kenner Avenue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hearing no further discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 12,332, an ordinance authorizing the utilization of state contract number 4400008219 to purchase various types of ammunition from Barney's Incorporated, Barney's Police Supplies on an as-needed basis not to exceed $30,000 per year for the Kenner Police Department. I have a motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. Hearing no discussion, council members, please vote. Mr. Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Han Enterprises Incorporated to furnish and install Ultra Play stations at Seton Park Playground in accordance with telephone bid number T17-2549 and an amount not to exceed $7,560 for the Department of Parks and Recreation. Item 16B is an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Economical Janitorial and Paper Supplies, LLC, to supply janitorial supplies on an as-needed basis in accordance with seal bid number 17-6411 and an amount not to exceed $75,000 per year for the Department of General Services. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees. Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk and Council President. I just wanted to remind everybody, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, which I believe is the 20th, it will be the 49th annual Driftwood Parade that will roll through Driftwood. The parade begins at 1 p.m. and just wanted to invite everybody. It's a great family neighborhood type parade, and kids enjoy it, and it's always a good time by all. So thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. President. I too would like to invite everyone in the city of Kenner, or everyone from St. Charles Parish or wherever to come. On January the 15th is Dr. Martin Luther King celebration. We in the city of Kenner have been privileged and honored to be able to celebrate the Dr. Martin Luther King celebration for this will be the 33rd year. We actually was on board from the very beginning, the inception of it. So that says a lot about the city of Kenner, but it also is an opportunity for different civic organizations, for playgrounds, for children from the schools to come together to be able to come and walk and to celebrate and to acknowledge all of the great work that Dr. King did. Sometimes there's a perception that this is for District 1 or this is just for black people. Dr. King was for everyone, equity for everyone. So if you have an opportunity on January the 15th, a lot of people are off from work, some people aren't, to come out and share in the procession that will start at the Providence Baptist Church on Providence Street. It will proceed west towards the A.P. Clay Center, Head Start, which will take about 45 minutes if you're walking. And then we will have a program that normally lasts about an hour from a main speaker. We have some of the children to perform. We have some other professionals to perform. But all in all, it's a good day to spend together in unity and to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Councilman Klein, you have the floor.
I just wanted to announce that I'll be riding in the Driftwood Parade too, so come out and enjoy the day. It's a great experience. Thank you.
Councilwoman DeFranchise.
Councilman Carroll, I believe, also has another event for Martin Luther King on Friday, do you not? I wanted to remind everyone, but I will let Councilman Carroll tell you about it. But there's another event being held at the Martin Luther King Center on Friday. No, sir, it's your event, please. If with your permission, Council President, I'd like to give him the floor.
If he hits his button.
Go ahead.
There we go.
can I tell you?
Councilman Carroll.
Mr. President, and thank you, Councilwoman DeFrances. Yes, this is actually also a city-sponsored event from the Martin Luther King Center that is in the Lincoln Manor subdivision. From 7 until 9, there's another celebration from the children that attend the center and some other individuals from, I believe, the Lincoln Manor neighborhood to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. So it will be at the Martin Luther King Center on 31st Street in the Lincoln Manor subdivision from 7 until 9. All of the council, everyone is invited. I think I will be there to do the Pledge of Allegiance and do an opening, a very brief opening, and to be able to give it to the community and the children to be able to perform and show their appreciation and the things that they've learned. So thank you again, Councilwoman. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hang on, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Yes, sir. Item 17. Item 18 is new business. We have none. Item 19 is unfinished business and motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position. We have none. Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Okay, before we start having persons come up and giving their comments, I'd like to remind everybody there's no campaigning allowed. Please be aware that while you're testifying or making statements, if a point of order is called by a councilman, you should stop speaking at that time and wait for a ruling in further direction. You will not lose any time against your 3 minutes for that purpose. Okay. So, Mr. Fred Miller, would you like to come up?
Well, anything I would say would be redundant. I'd just like to wish the mayor and all the city council members and everybody up there a happy new year. And I hope the planning board takes my recommendations.
Thank you. And next, Gail Yedon. Is she here? Gail? Okay. Miss Gail, if you will, state your name and address.
Gail Yaden, 3212 Roosevelt, and I'm not running for anything. I guess it was supposed to come up for 9C, but when you did a deferral, I didn't know if we could still come up to talk. But I'm on the Main Street Committee. We met with Mr. Gendusa in December, just trying to find out what he was going to do with the building at 402 Williams Boulevard. He told us he wanted to bake his cookies in his restaurant, bring them across the street, ice them, package them, make his gelato, and roast his coffee in that building. But we asked him, we did not want another warehouse in Rivertown. We want someone to bring a business, to bring people, and pay taxes, not a warehouse that will get nothing, no benefit for the community. So we asked him, he said, well, I can open a gelato shop, which we are in favor of, if he wants to sell his cookies, his gelato, or anything like that. So we asked him for a business plan. We met with him January 9th. No business plan. He asked us, he would send it to us by this meeting. We still haven't gotten it. So we just wanted to, nobody's against Troy. We all love eating at his restaurant. But we'd like him to put it into commerce, to bring the foot traffic, to pay taxes, and just trying to get people down to Rivertown. He's done a wonderful job with his restaurant, so we'd like to see that business at 402 the same thing, not just renting it and doing nothing with it for the community, I guess, is what we're saying. So that's, and like I said, the other Main Street people were here. They didn't know if we could come up and talk about it, so they did leave. So I'm glad you deferred it so we can keep talking with Troy to see what he's going to do with it. My other question is, do we have any rules or regulations about Airbnbs and short-term rentals for the city? Okay, I think it's something we should look at. I have one down the street from me on Roosevelt. I believe I called your office maybe about it. We started noticing all these license plates from out of town. 4 cars from Florida, then we had them from Missouri, and we realized the people moved to California, but they're still renting this house out. I'm not against them, but we'd like to know if they're in our neighborhood, so we don't have to say, oh, all these cars, maybe we need to call the police. But it's, you know, a business, but if you Google Airbnbs in Kenner, we have a lot of them. And I know that New Orleans went ahead and put, I think, licensing and things like that. I think it's something that maybe we should go ahead and look into.
Ms. Yaden, we don't have any laws specific to Airbnbs, but we do have occupational license requirements. So any Airbnb businesses would have to go through code to get permitted, and at that point, they'd be, you know, go through the occupational license process.
Okay.
But we don't have laws specific to Airbnbs.
Sort of like what New Orleans did.
We don't have that yet.
So maybe we need to look into that, because when you Google it, I was shocked at how many places are for rent in this. Like I said, I'm not against it. I just want people to know what's living next door to you, or constant turnover of people coming in those neighborhoods. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Al Morello? Oh, you would like to make a comment? And you are in the queue. All right, Councilman Segura.
Thank you. Ms. Gale, yes, I do appreciate the comment, and actually, last year, during my tenure as mayor, I did have conversations with Code and City Attorney a little bit about the premetal coming of this, and I do, at the time, we were in the midst of the TNC legislation debates and drama, and then that went into the vote. So now that we're about finished, I will take that on and start with the help of others to look at this issue too, because you're right, I've done that search and seen several of them in every district.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. President. And Ms. Earden, thanks again for all of you guys from the Main Street, also the Historic Committee. And just to kind of tie together the information that we talked about for 9C, the information that Ms. Earden talked about, it's not just about Mr. Gendusa. We have taken the Rivertown area to another level, I believe. We are in the process of advancing. We are in the process of adding other businesses. We are in the process of adding the Historic Committee. So it's a lot of work that we have to be able to initiate and to ensure that businesses that will follow Gendusa's, businesses that will come also, we hoping and praying for many, many more. So it is a learning stage in a sense for us, and Mr. Gendusa just happens to be like a guinea pig, for lack of a better word, to be able to ensure that we are following the plan that we have. And we have a plan. There's a number of businesses that are forthcoming. Everything from addressing the paint on the wall to the street. We have a big drainage project that's coming up to ensure if anyone has driven down Williams Boulevard between Jefferson Highway and the railroad tracks, know that area floods fast. It goes into buildings. So we have a big project coming for that. So we are going in baby steps to ensure that we are building a footprint, a blueprint to ensure that we are enticing the right type of businesses for this historic district. We also can't forget that there are people who have been living in that area right off of Williams for many, many years. We have to be, mindful of their rights and their quality of life also. So all of these things, all of these balls in the air, Mr. Ince is kind of like the champion for the Main Street. His participation is paramount for sure to ensure that we follow the guidelines of the Main Street, but also ensure that we follow the guidelines that's attributed to the citizens of Kenner, particularly in the Rivertown area, along with the groups like Ms. Yearden. So I think we have a good team together, along with the mayor, the administration. I look forward for great things in the Rivertown area. I look forward for the success for Gendusa's and anything else and any other company that will come in to ensure success. We lost, I hate to bring other things up, but we lost the German Festival. I think was a good success for the Rivertown area, but we will move on and get something even bigger than that. So thanks again for your support. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Thank you, Ms. Edon. Mr. Al Morello, thank you for your patience, sir. If you'll state your name and address.
Al Morello, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 46 years. I got some comments I want to make about the Esplanade Mall. I see Councilman Klein is no longer here, but I want to make these comments anyway. The Foot Locker and the Kids Foot Locker have left the mall. They did relocate in the old K&B and Rite Aid building on 32nd and Williams Boulevard. But then another business is left also. They were supposed to leave on the 1st, and I assume they have. The Framing Place, another business has left the mall. So I just wanted to make the council aware of this, and I wanted to address this to Councilman Klein, but as I said, he's not here. Second, I had a discussion with the mayor and Ms. Foshee here, and a couple of months ago, concerning movie productions in the city of Kenner, as the figures became available as to what the economic impact was for the city, and for them to tell us a little bit about these movie productions. We had the Pontchartrain Center cater to these movie producers for another movie shot in the city of Kenner on December the 14th and the 15th. And I'd like to know if any figures came in yet as to what the economic impact was for the city, and to know a little bit about this movie production. Third, I want to commend the Recreation Department for a job well done on decorating Kenner City Park for the Christmas holidays, but I also would like to know how much revenues were raised for events they had in the park where children paid, it was $5 and adults for $8. This was in the Advocate on November the 23rd. I'd like to know how much revenues was raised from these events that took place in that park. Okay? Now, let's see where I'm at now on the next. I think that's about it. I think I covered it all. Anybody got any comments, any questions? And I'd like the administration to respond on the figures with this money.
Sorry?
Mayor's on?
Okay. I just didn't want to jump in there. I didn't want you to say point of order. Mr. Morello, we are actually in the process of getting those numbers together for the Christmas display. Mr. Maricoli was working on that this past Wednesday. We can have it for you for the next council meeting.
Thank you. I got any time left for Councilman Wilmot? There was one more thing.
Few seconds, so finish up.
Okay. We also discussed, Ms. Foshee, a couple of months ago about an independent audit being done at the Pontchartrain Center. You said when that audit was complete, you'd get it for me. Has it been completed yet? What's the status on it?
The internal auditor is in the process of auditing all departments. So the Pontchartrain Center audit as a separate audit has not been concluded. He's auditing every single department in the city. He's made it through about 4 or 5 departments at this point.
I'll give you some more time, Ms. Foshee.
Well, I think what you asked me to do is provide you with documentation relating to the collections, and then at the very next meeting, I brought that to you, after you reminded me, of course. So I'm not sure that there's anything else specific you're looking for, but certainly if there is a separate audit, that will be made available once that's complete.
That's what I'm talking about, Ms. Foshee.
There you
and
go.
I'll touch base with you again down the line on that, okay?
Okey-doke.
Mr. Morelli, yeah, your time is up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is, Councilman Segura.
Mr. Morrell, I just want to give a little bit of reference. I know she'll have the money to you shortly, but I can assure you my grandkids were very, very thrilled and enjoyed to watch me try to ice skate. And I paid for all of them to spend an hour on there, and they laughed and laughed at me falling down constantly. So people did have a good time and did enjoy paying to go do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Greg Teff. Name and address, sir.
Greg Taft, 3720 West Loyola Drive. I just have a couple things that I want to address. One is about 6 or 7 months ago, I believe it was, we was talking about work to be done at the boat launch. And as of yet, I'm just wondering what the status of that was and when that was going to take place, because there are a lot of boaters that use it, and it is a problem when you launch. The other thing I wanted to ask the council to look at and the administration look at, we've lost, I know we've gained some businesses, but, you know, I think the mall is continuing to lose retail. I know we work with Jedco, but I'd like to see us do what Kenner did years ago, and that is to have that in-house. And with someone that's professional, that knows how to go out and hustle business development. Not just somebody just to come and draw a paycheck, but someone that knows how to do it, has their fingers on how to work with these different retailers. Because it's a shame that we keep losing, and we have these buildings, we're putting new ones over here, but we can't keep losing and not putting more businesses in. And I don't think car lots is the answer down the road either. I mean, we're going to become the car place of the world pretty soon, and I don't think that's really what Kenner is all about. So I hope the administration, council will take this in consideration, that we need to look at a better way to bring the businesses in. Jedco is not the answer. And if we have to, let's get somebody in here that can rouse them up for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teff. Next, we have Councilman Reno. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Teff, just to let you know on the boat launch, it has been budgeted in this year's budget for the boat launch, and I have had conversations with the administration, and I know it's been delayed, but hopefully the administration is going to get on this real soon. We don't have funding for the whole project to do. We did one slip of the slips that are there. We did one in previous years, and now we need to do the next, I think it's 2 or 3. I think it's 3. It's a total of 4. So there's some money in the capital budget to do, I guess, maybe another 1 or 2. And depending on what the price is, I'm willing to put up district money, even though I want to make it perfectly clear to all my fellow council members, this is a citywide boat launch. This, even though it's in District 3, everybody from the city uses it, as well as Jefferson Parish and St. Charles Parish, and anybody that wants to use the facility, it's there. We don't charge to use it. But if the funds are available in the District 3 account, and we can work on that, because I'm hoping to be able to have the administration do all of the remaining 3 that need to be done, and then it's fixed once and for all. Well, I shouldn't say that. With maintenance, it'll probably have to be done again, but not under my watch.
Mayor Zahn,
Thank
you
you.
have the floor.
Thank you, Council Chairman. Yes, we are waiting for Bert Kleinpeter, the engineer, to come back with those cost estimates. Hopefully, we'll have it shortly. I don't know, but hopefully those will be in. As soon as we get those back, it's either 1 or 2 that the cost estimate was for. I know it's 1, obviously, but it might even be as far as 2. But you're right, there are 3 left. When I was doing that, I was meaning the 2 that we were looking at. And then also to Mr. Teff's question about economic development, absolutely. We are actually trying to form something right now. Not the same old thing as we've had in the past, Economic Development Committee, but maybe some type of a business council that, you know, we all work with to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. The mall's in trouble. We've seen that. But we are seeing businesses not leave the city of Kenner, some of them, but some of them are just relocating in the city of Kenner. And I think you're getting into that where people like to just pull right up to the store. He mentioned Foot Locker. Yeah, I mean, some people just don't want to go into the mall. Obviously, Lakeside's a different animal, I get it. But right here in Kenner, they might just want to pull up like in Elmwood. So we are retaining some, but we have, obviously, I support Mr. Teff's comments. We need to grow more too. So we are going to be working on that very shortly. And it will be somebody with some, that the committee, we'll get the committee to actually look at someone to recommend where we go with that director or that person that can lead the city to bring more businesses in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next, we have Pastor Jackie Brown Cockerham. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Pastor Jacqueline Brown Cockerham, 2610 Decatur Street, Apartment A, Kenner, Louisiana. My concern today is about the airport expansion, the temporary noise wall that is still ugly. I haven't heard anything from Mr. Charles about that yet.
Pressed it one time. Yeah, well, one of the things that we talked about doing was taking the black material that you see on the back side and also putting that on the front side. One of the concerns was that the children could climb on it, and we want to put an end to that as well. So I don't know what else we could do to make it pretty. I guess we could put some bushes out there, but I don't think that's really feasible. But we're still looking at that, and we're working with the engineers with the airport. There's a couple other things that they've mentioned as well. But right now, nothing has been finalized.
Okay, now, keep in mind, that was the previous discussion, but the last discussion, one of the last discussions that we had was that there's a transparent yellow fence in there. So everything that was constructed to hold up that wall is what we see. The transparent fence is not hiding that, and it just really looks ugly. So we talked about, the last time I came here, was about having something that's non-transparent, something opaque, so that we don't see all of the structure that y'all had to use to hold that wall up, because that's what we're looking at. If you ride to Decatur Street, you'll see it, and it's just ugly. So just need that corrected.
Yes, ma'am, I've been out there, and I know what you're talking about, and we're working with the engineers with the airport to see what we can do with that.
Okay. And the other thing is that there are homes along the entire stretch of Veteran Heights, along that canal where the construction is, and they're looking for walls also, because they're still enduring the noise. And I understand why they put it at Decatur Street, but the entire neighborhood needs that wall because of the noise problem.
We'll check with them on that. I was expecting more wall also, so we'll talk with them about that.
Okay. Any other comments or helpful hints? Anything? Okay, well, have a happy and a blessed new year.
Thank you. You're welcome. Next, we have Shanta Phillips Berry. If you will, state your name and address, please.
Shanta Phillips Berry, 202 Clemson, Kenner, Louisiana, 70065. I have 8 or 9 police reports. I have over 100 people passing down my street within 1 hour. I've took license plates because I sit there and counted them. I have not seen one police officer pass my door within months. I am very concerned about what's going on in Kenner. I have been raised here. I've been here 50-something years. I have sat in these council meetings. I have seen our city tear apart, and it's going from one side. We're doing so much on one side, and we're not doing enough on the other side. Every council meeting, I sit in these meetings every time they had one. Mark Johnson was the councilman at that time, and I was young. And I go out and I help with voters to campaign for anyone who was running for something. I asked family members. I work for the poll.
We need to keep from talking. in
Oh,
terms
I'm
of-
not campaigning.
I know, but
I'm
we gotta-
talking about the city of Kenner.
I understand, but you're talking about campaigning specifically. Please refrain from doing so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just stood up to say that I don't know what's going on with Kenner itself. We never was a city that was divided. I grew up here. I was raised here. And everyone, no matter what color they were, they enjoyed each other. I went to the recreation. I played for the parks and recreation. I did everything. I was a cheerleader, a major at everything with the recreation department. And I just stood up to say that because I hadn't been to a council meeting in a while. But I just stood up to say what is going on with my city.
Thank you. Next, we have Reverend Michael Austin. If you will, name and address.
Reverend Michael Austin, 600 Hanson Avenue, Kenner. First, I'd like to make a motion to you, Tom. We need a motion, because it's cold in here. I am freezing. We need a quick motion. We have with us tonight Reverend Brown, national, state activist, community leader, as myself. And on a serious note, I'm here tonight, and I do know by me being in law enforcement over 30-something years, and I was informed that this case was still being investigated and is still open. So that gives me time not to speak about that particular case. But I like for Brother Armand Brown's family to stand, all the Brown family that is with us tonight in support of this young man whose life was taken and by the hands of the Kenner Police Department. And a young man that was born and raised in this town, and not only raised, but was baptized by a very well-known pastor, deceased, Reverend Arthur Paul Clay, Sr. Also, he was educated in this parish, and he represented this city very, very well. And for to lose his life like he did was just not, we call, justice at all. Again, I will refrain from speaking about this case because it is still an ongoing investigation. And I'm not here to batter anyone, and I will not do that. I'm a little bit professional, and I consider myself a professional person, so I know better not to do that like I used to do years ago when I would get up here and let my hair down. So, girl, you know that. All right. So at this time, I want to thank this family. I ask everyone to pray for this family, that they're here tonight because their child, their son, is going to be with the Lord. And we all here tonight need to as well. I have heard when we came, we lost Keith Chero, who's a friend of all of us. My sister lost her life. Lieutenant Rose Dilworth worked with Greg Caron at the sheriff office in New Orleans on December the 6th of just past. My sister lost her life in the line of duty, a Lieutenant Rose Dilworth. My aunt just passed a week and a half ago. Just last night, my father passed. So I'm standing here tonight asking for your prayers for my family as well. And I pray that we have justice in this case, which justice will be done and found upon the prayers and the strength of everyone. And we have every pastor in that first district, every pastor, every minister, every deacon that is praying with this family. Only the immediately families here now. We didn't ask everyone from the community to come. We just ask for justice, and justice will be found upon this young man, because it could have been your son. It could have been my son. But they're going through what they're going through, and it's not easy at all. God bless you. God keep you, Reverend Brown. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Austin. Thank you. Next, we have Richard Brown. I'm sorry, Gregory Carroll. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. And Pastor Austin, full disclosure, real good friend of mine. We've been knowing each other since, well, he's older than me, but we've been knowing each other a long time. I like to say that, Mr. Brown is a resident of, still is, because we have his memories of District 1. And I would like to thank the family for coming today and to continue to pursue justice, because this is what has to happen, and to hold the city of Kenner, not only the police department, but hold the city administration, to hold the council, and everyone that's could be a part of this accountable for it. So just like Reverend Austin said, I have a son, many of us have sons, and I don't want, like I said, it's something that is tough to even comprehend or talk about when you have things that happen like that. So it's just hard to address, but what is not hard to address is to ensure that the legal aspect of our individual rights as taxpayers and as people who live in the city of Kenner are held, and the people who are responsible are held accountable. So I can tell by the number of people who are here today, myself being from District 1, knowing many of the people who are in the audience today, from a family relationship, from friends, the District 1 is a, like I said before, the oldest community in the city of Kenner. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody's pretty much related to everybody. When one person or one family feels, it affects everyone. So listening to Reverend Austin, looking out into the audience, it has an effect on me also. So I pray that the family gets the information, gets the justice that they are seeking, that they require, and to continue to seek that regardless of whatever they have to do. And that we, as the city of Kenner, uphold the Constitution and the rights of everyone in the city of Kenner. Again, my prayers go out to the family. We'll continue to go out and look forward to supporting in any way necessary. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. And next, we have Richard Brown, if you will. Name and address, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Richard Brown, 824 Sessions Lane, Kenner. And by the way, before I forget it, I want to congratulate you, Mr. President, on being the council president for the next 6 months, and want to congratulate you and Councilman Segur on both having been reelected without opposition. And also, Mr. President, I appreciate the comments you made at the beginning of the meeting about decorum and personal attacks. I really appreciate it, and I want to commend you on the way you have conducted this meeting. I think it's been one of the best meetings I've seen in quite a while as far as maintaining order and decorum and no personal attacks. I appreciate it. I thank you for that and all of the council members. Now, we're going to have a parliamentary minute, or a parliamentary 3 minutes. And I'm going to mostly dissect some things that happened at the last meeting when the council spent about 10 minutes haggling over how to go about getting a postponement and whether to postpone definitely or indefinitely and which one to vote on first. But before I do get into that, I want to say that I was also glad to hear Mr. Wilmot encourage other council members to raise a point of order. Yes, we expect the chairman to maintain order. The chairman overlooks things. He's got other things on his mind. He may be looking ahead on the agenda. if y'all see something wrong or something you question, raise a point of order. You know, I remember a meeting a few months ago when someone who is a friend of mine, I think, abused the speaking privileges and went on for about 20 minutes without anybody cutting him off. He was making personal attacks, character attacks. I was appalled. I was astounded. I probably came closest that I've ever come to just running up here and asking, what are y'all doing tolerating that? I learned later 2 or 3 of y'all were whispering or sending messages to each other. Is this right? Somebody should have just said, Mr. Chairman, a point of order. This is out of order. We have a 3-minute time limit. We do not allow yielding time. So when you see something, and Mr. Segura, you've done this a few times, when y'all see something wrong, speak up, please. But back to the last meeting, I want to make 2 or 3 points. There was a lot of discussion about postponing those 2 boat ordinances dealing with the Uniform Development Code. And the first one was postponed indefinitely, as probably it should be. As a citizen and as an attorney and as someone who follows Kenner and knows the city charter, I think the city attorney was absolutely right. Those ordinances could not have been adopted in their present form because proper procedures weren't followed. I think the indefinite postponement was the proper thing to do, or they could have been withdrawn. But aside from that, let's move on to the second one, which was Mr. Klein's ordinance. You all spent probably 10 minutes or more discussing it with no motion on the floor. First off, that's not right. There should be a motion. You don't just start discussing things normally without a motion. I think maybe at times the council clerk may have been the only one who I thought really knew what was going on here, and a couple of others had a good idea. I probably heard the clerk say at least 4 times,
You got to
we
wrap
have
it up,
a,
Mr. Brown.
I'm sorry, sir.
You got to wrap it up, Mr. Brown.
I
You're already
will
over
try.
your 3 minutes, but go ahead.
And I
Finish that
might,
thought.
Mr. President, I might go to slightly over. I hope you can give me just a little
I'll give you
indulgence.
some time. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But I must have heard the council, you can also suspend the rules, you know. I must have heard the council clerk say at least 4 times, there is no motion on the floor. She said, we have a request for an indefinite postponement, but there's no motion, because the city attorney cannot make a motion. She had a request for a postponement. It was up to one of y'all to make a motion. Finally, somebody did. But Mr. Klein, whose ordinance it was, didn't want an indefinite postponement. He wanted a 2-meeting postponement. And he made that point a few times, but he never used the magic words, I move. When y'all want something done, the way to get it done is to say, I move. I move for a postponement. I move for a 1-meeting deferment or a 2-meeting deferment, or I move to amend. But when you say,
Time's up, Mr. Brown.
I'll finish this then the next time.
Okay, I appreciate you coming, yeah.
Because actually, let me make one quick point.
We really have time.
I stick to your
is up.
time limits.
It's already been like 4 minutes, so
And
we've gone over, so.
His request for a 2-meeting postponement should have been voted on first, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We appreciate it. Next time.
And we may or may not pick up next time.
Okay, all right. Do we have a motion? Move. Second. Adjourn.